During the intriguing saga of the earthly ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ, Annas and Caiaphas shone like the brightest stars in the Jewish religious firmament. Officially, Caiaphas bore the title of high priest, but the imposing shadow of the authority of the former high priest, Annas, hovered around him, giving him an aura of undeniable influence. They were the masters of the plots that would culminate in the crucifixion of Jesus, their names intertwined inextricably in the annals of history, the sinister architects of the tragedy that would mark him. Always humanity, like those who ended the life of the Son of God. Certainly, the figure of Annas and Caiaphas continues to intrigue and arouse speculation to this day. There is a natural fascination about the fate of these two religious leaders after playing such crucial roles in the crucifixion of Jesus. However, anyone who imagines that they may have felt remorse or regretted their actions is mistaken. On the contrary, the historical narrative reveals that they continued their obstinate persecution of Christ's followers, perpetuating their nefarious actions. But what really happened to Annas and Caiaphas after these crucial events? There are several versions and myths circulating, but what can we say with certainty? It is this mystery that we will explore in this video, as it is crucial to unmask the false narratives that often obscure the truth about these historical characters. Get ready to discover the facts behind the lives and fates of Annas and Caiaphas, as there is a lot of misinformation being spread out there. But first, take a look and see if you are already subscribed to the channel and leave a like, because this way YouTube will take this content to more people. And let's get to the story. To fully understand the role played by Annas and Caiaphas in the history of first-century Jerusalem, it is essential to delve into the complexities of the historical context in which they were inserted. At that time, the city of Jerusalem was much more than a religious center. It was an epicenter where politics, religion, and culture intertwined. Solomon's temple, built centuries earlier, was the beating heart of Jewish religious and political life. It was a symbol of national identity and a focal point for the rituals and religious practices of the Jewish people. Its grandeur and importance transcend the borders of Jerusalem, attracting pilgrims from all parts of Judea and beyond. Within this impressive setting, priests occupied a prominent position. They not only conducted rituals and sacrifices in the temple, but also played significant roles in political administration and making important decisions for the Jewish community. Priests were considered intermediaries between the people and God, and their authority was respected and feared equally. In this context, Annas and Caiaphas emerged as prominent figures. Annas, a prominent figure whose name echoes throughout the New Testament records, was not just any name in the Jewish religious hierarchy. Son of Seth and father-in-law of Caiaphas, he held the position of high priest, a position of maximum authority and prestige in the religious structure of the time. The high priest not only led the sacred rituals, but also managed the temple's financial resources, a post that, given the circumstances of the time, often became synonymous with wealth and comfort, a situation not unlike what we see in our day. In a religious context where values seem to have drifted towards commercialism, the position of high priest represented not only the spiritual pinnacle, but also control over a powerful financial machine. Exclusive access to the Holy of Holies, the holiest place in the temple, and the right to minister before the Ark of the Covenant were privileges reserved for him alone. This position gave Annas incomparable power, but it also placed him at a moral crossroads where spirituality mixed dangerously with earthly interests. How did this religious leader resolve this dilemma? And how did this unfold in your life after the pivotal events that marked the crucifixion of Jesus? That's what we're going to explore next. During the reign of Annas and Caiaphas, the role of the high priest transcended mere religious responsibilities. In addition to sacred rituals, the high priest exercised judicial authority over certain cases, even assuming political functions. After the Babylonian exile, the high priesthood became even more intertwined with political power, acquiring unprecedented influence over the people. However, this rise to political power distanced religious leaders from their original ideals, slowly eroding the integrity of the office. Once lifelong, the position of high priest was now subject to the manipulations of Roman authorities, who appointed and deposed priests according to their own political agendas. In this scenario of corruption and subjugation, Annas and Caiaphas emerged as prominent figures. Annas assumed the post of high priest for approximately 9 years, appointed around the year 6 by Quirinius, only to be deposed in 15 by Valerio Grado, under orders from Rome. This cycle of arbitrary appointments and dismissals highlighted the vulnerability of the high priesthood to the will of the Roman Empire, as Annas and Caiaphas manipulated their positions to secure their own power and influence. But how did this power play out in their lives after Jesus' crucifixion? It is the story of intrigue, betrayal, and, perhaps, divine justice that still waits to be unraveled. During and after his reign as high priest, Annas remained an extremely influential figure in Judea. His presence is highlighted in the Bible on 4 occasions, and the first mention occurs intriguingly in the words of the evangelist Luke. Luke takes us to year 15 of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, when Pontius Pilate was already ruling Judea and Annas and Caiaphas shared the title of high priest. In this era of political turmoil, Herod Antipas reigned over Galilee, while Philip ruled Iturea, both heirs of King Herod, whose attempt to eliminate Jesus at birth is recorded in the Gospels. This narrative from Luke unfolds after the year 26, when Pilate takes over the government of Judea. However, it is crucial to note that Annas had been deposed in the year 15, already more than a decade before these events. According to Jewish traditions, only one high priest served at a time, which could lead to confusion when faced with Luke's reference. However, Luke does not make a historical error, for his insistence on mentioning Annas as high priest suggests something deeper. Perhaps Luke is highlighting not only Annas' formal status, but also his lasting influence on the religious and political affairs of the day. Annas' role transcends his official title, shaping the events surrounding the ministry of John the Baptist and, later, that of Jesus. This subtle complexity adds a fascinating layer to the story, inviting us to explore deeper the legacy and influence of Annas on the history of Judea and early Christianity. The complexity of Annas' position as high priest transcends the mere formality of the position. Although officially deposed by the Romans in AD 15, Annas maintained a deep-rooted influence among the Jews, who recognized him as a significant spiritual authority. While Caiaphas held the official title of high priest, Annas was still revered as such, despite no longer being involved in the ceremonial activities of the Day of Atonement. This duality of authority reveals a lot about the political and religious dynamics of the time. Annas seemed to exercise extra-official powers that, in practice, rivaled those of his official position. His influence was so pervasive that he managed to ensure that 5 of his sons, plus his son-in-law and one of his grandsons, rose to the rank of high priest. This network of influence further consolidated its prominent position within the Jewish religious structure. Nothing different from what we see today when it comes to the search for power or position. One of Annas' sons, who also served as high priest, was responsible for attempting the stoning and death of Jesus' brother James. This event illustrates not only the continuity of Annas' legacy, but also his willingness to use his power to preserve his influence and persecute those who posed a threat to established interests. Thus, by mentioning Annas as high priest even in a context where Caiaphas officially held the position, Luke offers a penetrating vision of the political and religious reality of the first century. Annas' authority transcends formal boundaries, echoing through the generations and shaping the events surrounding the early Christian church. The episode in which Jesus is brought before Annas before his official trial, presided over by Caiaphas, vividly illustrates the power and prestige that Annas still maintained at that time. His influence was so marked that many scholars believe that, in practice, his authority could surpass even that of Caiaphas himself, the official high priest. Annas, in his prominent position, conducted a type of preliminary hearing before the official trial at the Sanhedrin, which functioned as a Jewish Supreme Court. After Jesus' interrogation, Annas, driven by envy and rivalry, sent him to Caiaphas to be officially interrogated. This joint action between Annas and Caiaphas culminated in Jesus' unjust conviction on false charges, laying the groundwork for his subsequent crucifixion. Annas' role in this episode cannot be underestimated. His ability to manipulate events and influence the course of events reveals not only his political cunning, but also his willingness to use his power to achieve his personal goals. At the same time, we see highlighted the tensions and rivalries within the Jewish religious elites of the time, where power and ambition often prevailed over justice and truth. Annas' remarkable presence in these crucial events in the story of Jesus highlights not only his historical importance, but also the moral and political complexity that permeated the religious context of the time. According to the reports of the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, Caiaphas rose to the position of high priest by appointment of the Roman procurator Valerio Grado in the year 18 and remained in the post until he was deposed by the procurator Pontius Pilate in 36. This 18-year reign indicates a remarkable ability to adapt and conciliate with the Roman authorities, suggesting skillful diplomacy on the part of Caiaphas. During his long period as high priest, Caiaphas not only witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus, but was also a central figure during the first recorded persecutions against Christians, as recounted at the beginning of the book of Acts of the Apostles. His position of leadership and political influence placed him at the center of the crucial events that shaped the early Christian church. This longevity in office and his prominent role in key moments in the religious and political history of the time highlight the importance of Caiaphas as a central figure in the narrative of nascent Christianity. His ability to skillfully navigate between the demands of Roman power and the expectations of the Jewish community made him a powerful and influential figure whose legacy echoes through the centuries. The joint presence of Caiaphas and his father-in-law Annas in the biblical narrative sheds light on an intriguing behind-the-scenes dynamic of Jewish religious power at the time. Although Caiaphas officially held the title of high priest, Annas' behind-the-scenes influence was so palpable that many believe he directed events effectively from behind the scenes. Caiaphas, described in the scriptures, emerges as a dark, perverse, and manipulative figure, willing to sacrifice justice and the lives of innocent people for the sake of his own interests. His thirst for power and his willingness to use questionable means to achieve it paint a disturbing portrait of a religious leader corrupted by the desire for control and influence. Based on what we have seen so far, I ask you, are we experiencing different behavior these days? I don't think so. But what is your opinion? Leave it in the comments below this video. While Caiaphas was the public face of the high priesthood, Annas, behind the scenes, exercised equally significant, if not greater, authority. His ability to maneuver events to favor his personal and political interests cast a shadow over the crucial events that led to the crucifixion of Jesus and the persecution of the first Christians. Thus, the presence of Caiaphas and Annas in the biblical narrative not only highlights the complexities of religious and political power at the time, but also offers us a penetrating look at the tensions and rivalries that permeated first-century Jewish elites. His actions and motivations continue to intrigue and challenge modern readers, offering reflection on the dangers of misused power and the importance of moral and spiritual integrity in leadership. Caiaphas' cunning, opportunistic, and inhumane behavior reached its peak when Jesus resurrected Lazarus. Instead of marveling at the miracle of the resurrection, Caiaphas' hatred toward Jesus intensified. He not only articulated a plan to kill Lazarus, who had just been brought back to life, in order to prevent more people from believing in Jesus through this miracle, but he also defended the idea that Jesus should be sacrificed for the good of the world. Nation. However, Caiaphas' actions were not aimed at the well-being of the people, but rather his own selfish interests. He feared that Jesus' growing influence might trigger a revolt that would bring the wrath of Rome upon Jerusalem, thus threatening its comfort and power. Before the Sanhedrin, Caiaphas argued that if Jesus remained alive, the nation would be doomed to ruin, but if he were killed, the nation would be saved. This perspective is revealing of the cruel and calculating character of Caiaphas, who was willing to sacrifice the life of an innocent and manipulate circumstances to preserve his own status and power. His selfish and inhuman stance contrasts drastically with the message of love, compassion, and justice preached by Jesus, highlighting the depth of moral corruption that permeated the religious elites of the time. Thus, the figure of Caiaphas stands as a grim example of the dangers of unbridled power and the relentless pursuit of dominance, warning us of the devastating consequences of uncontrolled ambition and a lack of moral integrity. Caiaphas' suggestion to sacrifice Jesus to save the nation ended up pointing to God's glorious plan of redemption through Christ's sacrificial death. John, when reporting this event, highlighted that, even without fully understanding the meaning of his words, Caiaphas unconsciously prophesied about the need for Jesus' death for the nation. However, this death would not only be to save the nation, but also to gather into one body the children of God who were scattered. This interplay between divine sovereignty and human responsibility is profoundly exemplified in the case of Caiaphas. Although he acted in accordance with his sinful nature and desired the death of the Son of God for selfish reasons, his words ultimately fulfilled God's eternal decrees. Caiaphas' advice was followed by the Jewish leaders, resulting in a plot to arrest and ultimately kill Jesus. This narrative highlights the way God uses even the evil intentions of human beings to accomplish his redemptive purposes. The betrayal of Judas, the unjust trial of Pilate, and the condemnation of Caiaphas all played a crucial role in God's plan of salvation for humanity. Thus, the story of Caiaphas serves as a powerful reminder of the intersection between human will and divine providence, showing how even the most nefarious acts can be redeemed by God's love and grace. The death of Jesus, The result of the conspiracy led by Caiaphas became the turning point in the history of humanity, inaugurating redemption and reconciliation between God and man. But what ended up with Annas and Caiaphas? Over time, many speculations have circulated about the final fate of Annas and Caiaphas. Some of these stories include legends of Gnostic origin that suggest that Annas was killed by his son-in-law Caiaphas. However, such narratives lack solid historical foundations and are considered mere inventions. The primary extra-biblical literary source for the lives of Annas and Caiaphas is the work of the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who provides details about the context of the high priesthood at that time and describes the leadership of Annas and Caiaphas in Judea. However, even Josephus offers no information about the deaths of these prominent figures. It is important to highlight that some people confuse Annas with one of his sons, who also held the position of high priest and was called Annas. This son, after being deposed from the high priesthood, played a role in the provisional government of Judea during the Great Revolt that broke out in 66 AD, and was later killed during the siege of the temple in Jerusalem. Regarding Caiaphas, in 1990, an ornamental ossuary discovered in Jerusalem was attributed to him due to an Aramaic inscription that mentioned Joseph, son of Caiaphas. However, the authenticity of this attribution has been questioned by many scholars due to debates over the spelling of the inscription. Furthermore, in 2011, archaeologists from a university in Israel announced the recovery of an ossuary discovered in 2008, which had been stolen, and which appeared to be linked to the family of Caiaphas. However, these archaeological discoveries still generate controversies and debates among scholars. If you made it this far in this story, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like. Until our next video.